nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. It is Thursday night. We are recording the very last Real Madrid post-game show for a long time because after this there's the World Cup. There's a break in between. But like 10 days or so, I think, before the World Cup starts, something like that. And then we got a break after the World Cup. And then we got Real Valladolid, I think, on the last day of the calendar year. But this weird stretch of games now comes to an end. This weird phase of everyone's asking the questions, are Real Madrid's players saving themselves for the World Cup? What's wrong with the team? Why aren't we performing well? All these questions in the press conference that Ancelotti has to deal with. Now we got this crazy game to end November, this really weird, strange game like of referee decisions and a lot of physical aggression from Cadiz. We got to talk about it all. And joining me, Kiyan Sobhani, is Mehedi Hassan, who is helping me break this down. Mehedi, how are you?
Hey, Kiyan, I'm doing well, and thanks for having me as always.
Where do we start, man? There's a lot of stuff that I don't personally normally enjoy talking about, but it's unavoidable tonight. Mm-hmm. So we got to talk about some of the referee stuff, the non-calls, the fact that he was so lenient with Cadiz, just basically kicking the shit out of everyone. I think we kind of have to start there. I mean, it's not a subject I personally love, but it's predominant. So I think we start there. We kind of get it out of the way, Mehedi, and then we can get into some of the tactical stuff if there's any interest from fans on that subject before we head into the World Cup stuff. But yeah, why don't we start there, Mehedi? Where do you stand on all this? How do you want to proceed?
Well, I'll tell you this. After watching this game, I'm slowly beginning to believe all that stuff that Diego said about the conspiracies and everything. I'm now Team Diego.
It's backfired on him.
Yeah, he
thought it was against Barca.
Yeah, so I'm now on Team Diego regarding that. By the way, let me start by saying this. Did you see what Fali, the player who punched Rodrigo, what he said after the game?
Yep. So for the listener's sake, let's read it before you dive into it. Okay, Mehedi? Yeah. So Fali, obviously the defender who elbowed Rodrigo at the top of the box in the first half. VAR did not review. It did not get called. No foul, no yellow card, no red card, nothing. He says after the game, he says a bunch of different things. So I'll just bear with me, listeners. If you haven't heard this quote yet, just brace yourself. If you're on your commute, hold on to the steering wheel with two hands. Be safe. Quote. Hold on, I just make sure I get the right one. All right. Quote. I gave him a little bit of an elbow, just a little, enough not to hurt him. It's not an elbow. With the image stopped, it seems more than it actually is. I apologized to him quickly. And then he wanted to say this about Vinicius. Just like I say about Rodrigo, that he's a good boy, I'm not going to say anything about Vinicius. I prefer not to say anything. A club like Real Madrid must control certain attitudes. We have to have respect a little bit more because we are partners. And then, I'll just leave it there. So basically, he goes on and says that, the thing with Rodrigo was not intentional. It was not really an elbow. The image made it look like worse than it was. And then he basically went on to say that Rodrigo is a good boy and that Vinicius basically is not. And he also said that Vinicius called us a second division club. So that's where we are with the Fali stuff.
Well, I'm going to get to what Vinicius said later probably. But yeah, what Fali said is, I mean, the audacity after doing something like that in an official game and then coming out and saying that and coming out and calling out a Real Madrid player and say that he's the one that who should behave. I'm talking about Vinicius, of course. It's just outrageous. And this level of refereeing, well, I'm going to say like the Super League is not La Liga's enemy at the moment. La Liga's own refereeing, La Liga's level of competition, how La Liga is conducting the competition, that's La Liga's probably biggest enemy. Because Carlo Ancelotti said this after the game as well, that he recently saw a stat, there were 55 red cards in whatever many games that we have had in La Liga so far compared to only 10 in the Premier League. Because in the Premier League, they will retrospectively look at Fali's foul and ban him for like 3 to 5 games. That's why a player wouldn't pull a stunt like this and then go on to admit something like that. So the level of refereeing and the level of ignorance that La Liga and RFEF has as an organization or two organizations is just really frustrating as a La Liga fan and as a Real Madrid fan, because I think the playing quality, the tactical aspects of La Liga, I still regard this in very high standard. But it is difficult to compare La Liga with other leagues if this is the level of officiating we have in like one of the biggest leagues in the world. It's just frustrating. It's helping no one. It's not helping. Of course, it's not helping Real Madrid. It's not helping the competition, the level of football. It's helping nothing. And because I've been watching La Liga for long enough to know that nothing will change. No matter how many official reports Real Madrid put on their website. Even today, they put on a tweet on a quote from Rodrigo on the official handles that Fali's foul was not something that you would see in a football pitch or something in the same tone. So I can see that Real Madrid is coming out recently more publicly to say these things probably they never said before. But I think it's just an empty cry. It's something that's not going to change. And if that's not going to change, La Liga as a league is not going to be competing, of course, not with the Premier League like at all, because there are other levels of broadcasting and that whole shenanigans as well. But even as just the level of football, the level of competition, it's just going to degrade from here. Like that's just my blatant initial thoughts towards this.
So here's the thing with me, and yesterday someone asked on IG stories, like, are the refs being fair with Vinny? And I put out a little video. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
Basically saying I don't think the refs are being fair with Vinny, and I outlined in that video the reasons why. And it turns out it was extra timely because then this happens today. My biggest thing right now is that the referees are not protecting the players. And by players, I mean basically what is happening is that there are defenders who have a lot of issues stopping a player like Vinicius because he's a special talent. He's a line-breaking player. He can do things that no one else does. He's a supreme dribbler. He's an elite dribbler. He can find space. And two things happen. One is that defenders hack him down. The second thing is then they try to make it so that they're the victim. The defender's the victim, as in like, look, he's provoking me. He's disrespectful. Listen, and I'm consistent with this stance. This is not a Real Madrid bias thing. I was consistent with this with Neymar too. I always said, like, you can't get mad at Neymar for embellishing contact when the guy is just getting wrecked play after play after play and not getting calls. I sympathize with that too. When he was with Barca, I was saying this too. And I think with Vinicius, it's a lot of the same. You can talk about, oh, he provokes, he does this, maybe he could mature a little bit, whatever. Bottom line is, this is a football match. He's trying to dribble past you, and you're trying to take him down. And he does it in a more stylish way or in his own certain way, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the way he does it. So to come out and say that Rodrigo is a good boy, but Vinicius isn't... Personally, I think the second division club thing is kind of funny. It's trash talk. We've heard much worse in trash talk. Like that's not the worst of it. So okay, with that out of the way, beyond the Rodrigo incident with Fali, By the way, this is the thing with Cadiz, and I want to also say this about Cadiz. Cadiz have been known to be like this for a few years now. Got nothing against that place. I actually have a soft spot for Cadiz, the city. Beautiful city. I have family history there, family ties in Cadiz. I've been there. It's one of the most lovely places. That team in particular, and let's not forget Juan Cala, who also started the game today, also has a history of racism, obviously with Diakhaby of Valencia, where he said something racist to him. Diakhaby walks off the field, refuses to play. La Liga does nothing about it. And then Juan Cala doubles down and says, I did nothing wrong, like a few days later. Fali himself has been known to be a dirty player. Ignoring the elbow, which is obvious, we have footage, we have the film. No matter what Fali says, it was not a dangerous play. It was not an elbow. It was worse than it looked. It looked worse than it was. We have video evidence that he meant to hit him, and it's a dangerous play. Let's pretend and let's assume that they did not have a good replay for whatever reason. Okay, they just didn't have it, which I think it's pretty clumsy that you don't have a replay available, because that's been the word. That's been like the excuse. Like, well, we didn't have this replay until after the game. Like, you were VAR. You're literally your job. You have 10 million camera angles and you have access to them. You saw this, like you were watching on ESPN TSN, I'm assuming, right? Remember when they were showing the replay? They showed everything except the replay. They showed like what's happening off the ball.
And whatever we saw, even on like Twitter, it's like such a blurry picture. But La Liga, as a matter of fact, has the best cameras probably out of all 5 leagues. They have 8K cameras. La Liga probably, I'm pretty sure they have the best cameras out of the all top 5 leagues. And if they like don't even bother to show it on replay, they have every single possible angle. They probably have an angle from Fali's elbow. They can like probably draw angle from there if they want to, but it is what it is.
And beyond that, let's just assume they just botched it up. They got it wrong. Okay, fine, you're human, you make mistakes. Ivan Alejo had multiple dangerous tackles on Vinicius in that first half without getting a card. I think he got his card in the 55th or 60th minute, which included, by the way, a play which Ferland Mendy beats him to the ball, is shielding it, the ball's out of play, and once the ball's out of play, he pushes Mendy into the boards. Nothing. Okay? And this is my biggest thing with this, is that when you don't hold defenders accountable for playing like this, it sets a really dangerous precedence that safety is not our priority. There are so many people who get upset with Vinicius for complaining about calls. If he complains, people get upset. Referee gives him a yellow card today for rightfully sticking up for Rodrigo in that instance. If he doesn't complain, they just keep kicking the shit out of him. He's supposed to just take it. You got to protect these players. And this is what I mentioned in the video yesterday, is we talk about the product of La Liga. We talk about the stat that you brought up earlier in the show, the 58 red cards. We talk about the fact that, okay, this season it's a little bit better, but, the fact that goals dried up last season, to a really, really below all the top 5 leagues. We got a player here who is bringing excitement to the league. He's one of your treasured assets. I'm not saying give him special treatment, but protect the product, protect the people who are bringing you viewers right now. I think I think they really got to get it together. Don't go into the conspiracies or whatever, but this is a referee issue. This is an issue that the players need to be protected more than they are. And I think it just sets a really dangerous precedence for just the safety of the players when they're allowed to just kick the shit out of a player and not get held accountable for it. Someone's going to get hurt. And Vinicius tweeted it sarcastically after the game, made it another day without getting injured. We all know it's half sarcasm, but it's really serious. Like, we're all just glad that he made it this far without getting injured. Someone's going to get hurt if they don't crack down on this.
Yep. And people's reaction to what Vinicius does, it infuriates me, it enrages me, because I'm looking at like FB refs fouls drawn this season for La Liga, and Vinicius, I think even without this game, Vinicius tops the list for the most fouled player in La Liga, 44 times. So it is only
it could
natural.
Be more, by the way.
Yeah, it could be more, and these are the only ones that were officially called. There have been multiple ones that were not officially called. Even in the Rayo game, Isi Palazon, I think he pushed him straight out of the pitch, and like it wasn't even looked at. So those kind of fouls were not even like included in this stat. So of course, the player that has been fouled the most times, that has been kicked the most times, he is going to react the most times. It is math. It is not that complicated. It has got nothing to do with Vinicius's racism row before the derby. It has got nothing to do with his dancing celebration. It has got nothing to do with that. He's the most foul player. Of course, he's going to show the most reaction the most times. So, and the point that you made, that we're not even asking that yet, like don't call anything against him or like wrap him with wool or something. Just be fair. Just be, if you can be 100% fair. No, I don't think anyone can in a contact sport all the time. At least try to be like 90%, 80%, at least try to be consistent. But this looks like it's driven by some kind of agenda. I don't know what that is. But that's why I like joked about that I'm now Team Diego at the beginning of the podcast. But La Liga, even like we have talked multiple times about even how foolishly strict they are about their content privacy as well. Even like they wouldn't release a 15-second clip for any educational purposes as well. So La Liga by doing all of this is just constraining the potential of their product, and they have only themselves to blame for this. No individual, not Florentino, not Real Madrid, Barcelona, or like any other club. They only have themselves to blame for constraining their own product like this.
I don't know really anything else that I can say about it. I think we touched on it. We outlined why I think it's an issue, and it's just something that really needs to be looked at, because above all, you need to protect the product, you need to protect the players, and I think it's just when teams can get away with playing like this. And I think it's a problem for the league. It's not a Real Madrid problem. It's a problem for the league that you don't have this under control. So with that out of the way, Mehedi, it's kind of interesting to see how this unfolded, because we all know what Cadiz is. We all know how they play. Sergio Gonzalez said it a couple days ago. He basically said that, we're going to try to make sure Real Madrid don't have space to work with. We're going to try to get them to pass it backwards, basically, setting up his low block, basically in days in advance, getting ready to defend at the Bernabeu. And they go into the low full 4-2 block. and I would say overall do a pretty good job of limiting Real Madrid's chances, because Real Madrid had a lot of the ball. They had a pretty high volume of shots. In terms of pure clear-cut chances, up until the point it was tied 0-0, there wasn't many. And I think one of the key moments in this game was the Militao header in the 39th minute, which puts them ahead, because then it forces, like you saw it, like when they came out of the second half, Cadiz actually started pressing a little bit higher, and we were able to bypass their press a few times. And obviously, we probably made this a little more comfortable and put it to bed if Luka and Modric doesn't have that uncharacteristic miss in the 78th minute. But I would say Cadiz overall did a pretty good job of limiting our chances in space in the first half. You look at the coverage in both half spaces. Anytime Vinicius and Rodrigo tried to break lines, they beat one defender. They were met with second, third, fourth defenders. And there wasn't much space to work with. I thought Fede Valverde did some really good quick switching in this game to get Cadiz to budge a little bit. We created some opportunities through our counter-pressing. Tchouameni had a couple shots at the top of the box that, they weren't great chances, but they were at least chances, decent looks at the top of the box, which were generated through counter-pressing. How did you see that first half unfolded? Where did you see the problem areas?
I think the game started like really slow for Real Madrid for the first 8, 9, or like probably even until the 12th minute. We didn't really have anything going. I remember, I think it was the 13th minute where Real Madrid first had a comprehensive chance, or like comprehensive attacking sequence. And from there on, even like if I look at the XG chart, it was like kind of going, straight pretty much until around the 30th minute. Then Real Madrid started to pick up pace. Before the goal, Madrid was actually not doing significantly well again, but then the goal then put them into some kind of peace, and they started to piece the things together again. Standout performers for me in the first half were, I would probably say, Luka, Modric, and Fede Valverde. Toni Kroos was obviously the man of the match. He was that's the thing with Kroos. Like, it's an amazing performance for other players, but for him, it's like, yeah, it's another day of the week. It's just that like he scored and assisted today, but Modric's movement in near the right half space, because Fede was playing as a forward today, that I think unlocked Modric to move well between the lines a few times as well. The Tchouameni got into a really good position. I think it was around the 30th minute when he released with the first touch to Rodrigo, but it was just a touch too quick for Rodrigo to latch onto. And the point that you made about Fede Valverde doing some nice things, making some quick switches. We discussed this in a previous part as well, that to break these kind of low blocks, off-ball movement and quick switches are always your best friend, apart from crosses maybe. So I saw that Real Madrid slowly getting into that plan and realizing that they have to move the ball faster. They can't like hog it all the time and expect Cadiz to do anything, because they're like, again, Getafe. They're not going to move if you don't attempt to move them. So yeah, I think even though Madrid scored twice in the second half, the first half was probably tactically more interesting, because Real Madrid started the game slow and then realized a few things that they needed to do and made those little in-game tweaks. That's pretty much my wrap-up from the first half. The goal was a good goal. Militao now 2 goals in 2 games. We've been talking about this for a long time, that Madrid's aerial game hasn't been up to the mark. If Militao starts doing these kind of things, that suddenly changes the scenario a lot, because this is like, the quality of crosses was never the issue. It was the quality of the finishing. But now that the finishing is there, it's better. And Militao, I think he's tallest of all of our defenders. So it is good to see him getting on the score sheet again.
You mentioned Kroos and Modric and some of the dynamics of the midfield. So just to go over it, Kroos 111 touches, 11 of 14 long balls, 4 key passes, a goal, an assist. Modric 107 touches. Tchouameni, like, it's interesting because I don't like all of these 3 players. Individually speaking, I thought had a good game, and collectively speaking, it was decent too. But I think so. We didn't really do anything wrong defensively as a unit until we started to just have brain farts to end the game. Of course, like why would we have a clean sheet? That doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't we just make this a little bit extra nervy for no reason with defensive lapses late? Until that point, it was pretty good. I mean, and that was in part due to us being pretty good in transition and controlling the ball and counter-pressing, and 2, also because Cadiz are just not a threat on the counterattack. And so it was fine. There wasn't really much to nitpick. There were moments where I thought, like, Tchouameni was really good on the ball today. I thought at times he could have be positioned a little bit better to progress the ball. There were a few moments where he could have turned himself into a vertical outlet. He decided to just hedge back and drop behind the ball, and I think limit some of our build-up chances in certain moments. But his passing was really good in this game overall. I thought he had a good game. And also, I think he had 5 clearances, something like that. The thing with Modric, and this is something that I think Cadiz did really well, especially in that first half when it was a little bit tighter. Modric was really, really mobile. He was trying to move between the lines. And I think they made it a point to make sure he doesn't have space. Like if he moves, there was like a contingent moving with him to make sure he doesn't hurt them in between the lines and in the half spaces. He was moving a lot, but he was also getting swarmed a lot. So I thought it was fine. It's just that this second half kind of turns into this weird thing where like you're super comfortable, you're limiting counterattacking sequences from Cadiz. You're not conceding many chances. You should go up 2-0, 3-0 because of the Modric chance, which was brilliant, by the way, the counterattack to lead up to that. I think, and by the way, we only talked about Vinicius getting fouled and all this, but he actually had a really good game, I thought.
Yeah.
Was really unlucky to have not at least one assist. His passing in transition was really good. His second half in particular, I thought was really good. So I was happy with the Vinny performance. But then you had this weird thing at the end where you concede, Courtois left for dead on 2 rebounds, no one picking up Lucas Perez, and then they nearly score at the end. Was it who was it for Cadiz?
Lucas. Who nearly scored?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
It was Alfonso Espino in the 92nd minute. And I think it was Alaba who holds him onside, and Mendy also doesn't track. It was double whammy. These are just like things like that Real Madrid just need to clean up in their defense, because it would have been an absolute disaster to drop 2 points at the end there.
Yeah. And you see, I think if we go and watch the La Liga table right now, let me just quickly pull this up. So I think Barcelona and we have both scored 33 goals in La Liga this season. Barcelona have conceded 5, 3 of them against us, and we have conceded 14.
Yeah.
So I know we have discussed, and even myself, I have reacted differently to different games, probably a bit more reactionary to a specific games than others, which I think were called for those specific games. But even Jose put out some stats yesterday or the day before yesterday. I think that Real Madrid are actually producing the same kind of chances, scoring the same amount of goals as they were at this stage of last season. So offensively, that was with Benzema. This is without Benzema. So in that sense, we are actually playing better because our best player is not even playing, and we're still producing similar numbers that we did last season, and we are producing similar numbers as the team that's leading the league right now. But our defense just hasn't been up to the mark or tight or locked in as it should be if we are to give a really long chase in this league. And it comes down to that, basically. We conceded 14 goals. We've scored the same amount as Barcelona. So if we are to simplify our analysis to the absolute bare bones, I would point towards that our defense has been pretty catastrophic in specific moments, which have cost us huge points. Like 7 points against Osasuna, Girona, and Rayo is inexcusable. And if we now look back, I think we can say that had our defense been better, we would at least be on par with points with Barcelona, or probably even a couple of points ahead.
Well, here's the other thing. I mean, and I feel like some of those games, like, Girona, Osasuna, I think it was more of an issue of our offense wasn't clicking. In most of these games, if you're having 1 or 2 defensive blips a game, it shouldn't be enough in La Liga to make you drop points if your offense is at a certain place.
Yeah.
And obviously not having Benzema really hurts. I mean, this is I don't know if I don't know if under the radar has been the right word, but certainly it should be a bigger story that we're playing this entire season so far without our best player. Without the best player in the world. He's literally not on the field for most of these games. And that's what you hope is a great equalizer, provided, knock on wood, he comes back really healthy from the World Cup. The other thing to look at here is that, Barca are slightly overperforming their expected goals against. They have an expected goal of nearly 10. They've conceded 5. So their opponents are missing chances. That's literally in the numbers. With Real Madrid, their expected goals is 14 something, so it's pretty much dead on. What does that look like when it normalizes, when Benzema comes back? I don't know. We also have to factor in maybe they have players coming back and all this stuff. So, I don't really know what it means for the end of the league title race, other than I'll just say this. I said this to Diego actually in a couple of weeks ago. I do trust Barcelona more to pick up these points that they're supposed to pick up. I don't trust Real Madrid in those situations as much as I trust Barcelona, and that's the reality. But that isn't, that hopefully will be proven wrong. This is a long season. It's a long season. Someone else asked me the other day, like, should we be worried? Like, what are there any silver linings? That was the question. Are there any silver linings? I'm like, there's no real silver lining that I'm picking up from some of these past performances that we've dropped points in, other than the fact that the season is long. We have to be patient. This is rarely an indicator where the team is going to be. You just have to hope that these points don't come back to haunt you in April, May, June. So, and this is the biggest unknown is still what happens in the World Cup. We have no idea. No idea. We're all going in this completely blind. We have no idea what awaits us when this is over. So, other things from the game, Mehedi? Do you want to just fire through your notes and I'll fire through mine?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the Kroos goal. It was set up like the sequence that led to the goal was potent enough in itself, but then like Vinicius tries to dink it into the box and it goes into a rebound, and this shot like felt so good to see because we see this in all the training videos that Kroos and Modric are like banging in volleys. They're hitting everything. Courtois, Lunin, Luis Lopez, nobody can get a touch. We see these training videos like every day. It's always good to see them like coming off in a real game as well. And I think it was a good note for Kroos to finish an excellent year, in a sense that the beginning of the year wasn't as good as the ending is for him. He's in absolute sublime form. I think one stat that you missed from when you listed Kroos' stats is he had 8 recoveries as well. I don't remember seeing Toni Kroos defend this aggressively and this well
never
in a long time, or even perhaps never. So it was a good thing that he ended the year on a really high note, and he actually stayed long after the game as well and thanked all the fans and stuff like that. So it was just a feel good moment from Toni Kroos. Another good sequence, I thought, since you brought up Vinicius, that how he did well in transition passing as well. There was that missed chance from Fede where he shoots like pretty much from close to the goal, but it deflects off a Cadiz defender. So I was actually very impressed that Vinicius chose to pass to Fede, and then Fede put it up to Vasquez. Vasquez returned it, and Fede hit the shot. I was really impressed that Vinicius chose to pass at that moment. Usually he would try to dribble past the defender, or even try to drag the defender further up the pitch and then try to cut back. So these are the 2 moments that stood out for me in the second half, apart from the Modric chance, of course.
Yeah, the other thing with Kroos is that, and you touched on his defense there. I'm writing a huge column about it. I'll probably release it before the World Cup starts, but this is his part of the reason why this is arguably his best season ever so far, is because his defense has been on another level. He just and also that it's also coincided with the season that Casemiro leaves. I don't think it should be understated how important Kroos' defensive contributions have been.
Yeah,
I think Tchouameni has so far been a good player. I think he's far still from his ceiling. What we'll see from him in the next few years. It's his first year, new league, new country, new language. He had a great interview today in L'Equipe, by the way. Everyone should go read it. But Kroos has also stepped up to lift weights defensively. And I was rewatching the Clásico for this column. It's like, man, that might be like, it's certainly one of the best performances by a midfielder in Clasico in recent memory. Like, he just transcended the field that day. And he was so good on defense. Frankie couldn't escape his shadow. Like, Frankie, like, he was coming over to dispossess Rafinha multiple times in the wing. He's tracking, he's covering for wingbacks. Like, this was never part of Kroos's game. Kroos was always good as a presser behind the ball. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he's just running over and just cleanly dispossessing players and tackling them, it's incredible to watch. So yeah, his defense again has been good, and obviously his on the ball, like we already mentioned, all of his numbers. I mean, just incredible. So
let me ask you this: gun to your head, do you have to you have to give an answer? What do you think? Does he renew or does he retire?
I think he gives one more year.
Yeah.
I was having a long conversation with my cousin about this in Spain yesterday, and he was like, "Man, I don't understand. Like, who are we? Like, why are we trying to sign Bellingham when we have all these midfielders?" Like, look, man, there's a sad reality coming up. Yeah, we have Camavinga, we have Fede Valverde, we have Tchouameni. Kroos and Modric are going to probably leave very close to, if not at the same time. Yeah. It's just going to be like that. It's going to hit us. They're both gone at the same time. It's going to be devastating. I think it's totally justifiable to go and try to sign someone like Bellingham right now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different conversation. Last time, I think I blew your mind with the stat that Ferland Mendy had 100% passing completion rate throughout an entire game. Today, he had 4 completed dribbles.
Mm-hmm.
Looked mesmerizing, escaping pressure on so many sequences. I don't think he had a perfect game. I think he should have done much better on that chance that Cadiz nearly scored from at the end. I still don't think he's been at his level from last season. One thing that just continues to blow me away is his press resistancy, which has been a nice revelation in the last, 12, 18 months or whatever.
Yep, and Mendy also had like one of those Zinedine Mendy moments in the first half as well. Well,
he had at least dribbling,
one. Yeah, he had. Usually that's inside Real Madrid's box or inside Real Madrid's half. Today it was in the opponent's half, and he's Zidane and Ronaldinho mixed up in that sequence. He's dribbling past everyone, shaking out bodies and stuff like that. So yeah, it was cool to watch.
If we can convince him that, like, just plant it in his mind that the final third is our third, he would, if he could just be the same player in the opposing box as that he is in our box, this would be a transcendent footballer. Like, he would just, if you could just tell, like, Mendy, just go soul searching. When you're in the final third, just pretend you're being pressured.
Yeah.
And just see what he can come up with.
La Liga defenders will forget about Vinicius if Mendy starts doing Zinedine Mendy in Real Madrid's attacking final third. Yeah, Vinicius is free by then.
One underrated and subtle play of the game that I thought, like, to me, really stood out, and I think no one really talked about it because of the game state. Right after Modric misses the open net, Cadiz counter the other way, and this is like all happening while Modric is like holding his head, and then Vinicius is like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we missed it." Modric is kind of laughing. Cadiz are on a break, and they do a 1-2 in the box, and Alaba comes over and has a crucial intervention that prevented a break in the box. I thought that was a very, very subtle, important moment. So that would have been, I mean, I don't have the minute tracked down, but it was literally right after Modric missed it. So you guys can figure it out. But I thought that was a very underrated moment. But I guess I was just kind of disappointed in the fact that we didn't really close it down defensively like we should have. There's no need to. I think part of these lapses come at a point in time in the game where we get comfortable. I think comfort has been Real Madrid's enemy for a long time. We thrive in discomfort. We thrive when the backs are against the walls. When we're comfortable, it's just kind of like this. Oh, we might concede. We might defensive lapse coming. And then we're like, we're up 2 goals, whatever. Okay, we can afford 1. But then Cadiz get momentum after that. we need to lock up those moments and clean them up a little bit after the World Cup. We need to do better in those comfortable situations, is what I'm saying.
Like, even if we like get comfortable after the 30th minute, after like scoring 2 goals until 30th minute, I'm fine with that. But the thing is, Lucas mentioned this in one of his tweets recently, that we start the game with this weird kind of sense of entitlement that, it's at the Bernabeu, we're going to win, we're going to smack them anyway. But that's the attitude. But in reality, the intensity is not matching the attitude. And before we know, it's the halftime is done, it's 0-0. The second half starts, the pressure starts mounting. So if we could like just be intense, be focused for the first 30 minutes, score a few goals, and then go into that mode, I would much rather prefer that.
So this is a real thing. This is a real psychological problem, because I think some people will hear this stuff and they'll be like, you guys are overthinking it. It's La Liga opponents are really good. It's hard to beat everyone all the time at the Bernabeu. It's a real a problem of energy, and everyone knows about this too. The players know that they're going into this game a little bit too overconfident, and still they can't do anything about it. This has been something with Real Madrid forever, for decades. I remember, was it 17, 18, I think it was? Can't remember. But one of those seasons where every single game for the first 45 to 65 minutes, we were sleepwalking in the Bernabeu. The energy just was way off. It was not even a tactical thing. It was not a situation where the opposing team was doing this magic defending. We were just asleep. And I swear, I remember I went to almost every game, and I felt like I was sitting in the same press conference over and over again, because Zidane would say the same thing. He would say, we know we have to start better, but even though we know, we can't. I have no explanation for it. It doesn't matter what I say before the game. It doesn't matter what talk I give. We go out asleep. And then all of a sudden, it just clicks in the brains, collective brains. Oh, it's minute 70. Oh, okay, let's start playing. And there's nothing you can do to switch it on sometimes. And I'm not making this up. This is stuff that Zidane was saying at the time. And after every game, it was the same questions. Why are you guys starting slow? I don't know. We know, but we don't know why. This was his answer, over and over again, like clockwork. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. To get up for these, especially look, all these things. Monday, was it Monday, or which one was it recently that was the earlier kickoff? Was it Girona? I think it was.
It was Girona, I think. Monday was in the evening. Yeah.
Yeah, Monday was Vallecas. That was the night game. Those early games are always weird against a quote-unquote smaller opponent. This one was the last one before the World Cup. It's just a little bit... Mind you, I think this one actually was... The Cadiz were actually defending well in the first half and just doing some things to frustrate the hell out of us. I don't know if it was a lack of effort today, to be fair, but just as more of a general point. But the defensive side of things at the end needs to be cleaned up. Yeah. All right. Did we miss anything?
Nope. I think we got everything. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go to sleep. I haven't slept in 48 hours. Mehedi, this was fun.
Yeah,
we're planning on doing a Toronto show in December.
Yeah.
So I got to talk to you about that off air. And so if you're listening to this and you're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we're gonna be there during the World Cup. We're gonna do a World Cup podcast. We're gonna talk about all of Real Madrid's players. We're gonna do super interactive. We're gonna give away some crazy prizes. We're giving away things that are signed by Luka Modric, things that are signed by Toni Kroos, Luis Figo, some of Real Madrid legends. We're giving stuff away. Thanks to our patron, Daniel Smith. And we're going to have La Liga involved. La Liga is going to be giving stuff away, scarves and jerseys and stuff like that. So stay tuned for details, announcements on day, time, venue. We're going to do that in Toronto next month. And what else? Mailbag is tomorrow. Couldn't do it today because I was traveling. So you can submit your questions to Lucas and I over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. That's also where you get access to the show. Mehedi, this was fun, man.
Yep, as always. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kiyan.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mehedi. Take care, and we'll chat soon. All right. right, thanks for listening, guys. Also want to give a quick shout out to our $10 plus patrons. Well, shout out to all of our patrons, really, because you guys make this show possible. We really appreciate you being part of this Real Madrid family and growing with us. Shout out to our $10 plus patrons, specifically because if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get guaranteed responses to your questions, but you also get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Wayne Herring, Wamik Jamal, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Tarek Goktas, Talib Sahal, Tamir Kalam, Sujai Wani, Sumanshu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabaz Sharapov, Sergio Adispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justa, Samar Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Fali, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicholas Moller, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Michael Zinberg, Nick Rivero, Marin Myrtle, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lex, Logan Stahl, Leon Sabernakis, Kunal Talakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Antakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davidito, Elo Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Top, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arnab Mukherjee, Armand Gashi, Armando L, Anton Rudenko, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Alex Steiberg, Al, Azaz Hussein, Adrian Rios, and Darza Ludovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Makur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. Thank you guys. We love you all. And Haramari.